What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, please hit that subscribe button. It's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible with as many interviews as possible. Now today, we have the honor and privilege of being joined by X-Rated.
Hey,
thank you, sir.
What's crackin'?
Man, always great to see you.
Likewise.
Today, man, so much going on with X-Rated in his career, but the recently released album, A Sin in Heaven, getting a phenomenal response already. And I think the album has so many layers, and we're about to get into a lot of that. But first of all, why? Because throughout your career, I would argue your album titles are very important and very significant to what is contained in the album.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Sin in Heaven, why is that what you ran with this time?
I feel like it continued that legacy that I've had of having those titles that were, you know, Vengeance is Mine, Nefarious, Speak of the Devil, The Unforgiven. I've kind of always been that guy. Unforgiven, Vindication. So I kind of wanted to continue that. A Sin in Heaven, A Prayer in Hell with the prior album, A Sin in Heaven being the follow-up. I have additional ideas for me to be able to come back to this, but I do on the next album I'm gonna start a different thing.
Okay.
But I'll be back, I'm not done with it. But it's this container to hold these eras of my life and my eras of my career, my perspective. The era of I found out I was coming home, I had life, find out I'm coming home, I get home and I'm acclimating, and that's my prayer in hell. I didn't have a chance in hell. I was never supposed to be free, face the death penalty, defeat the potential for that, get sentenced to a life sentence, do all my time, start handling my business, the laws changed, and I went from not having a prayer in hell to saying a prayer in hell to be free, to having that prayer answered. And so I'm released, and it's like I came home, I have to acclimate, but I'm also on parole. So I have life of parole, and life of parole is different from regular parole because you still have a life sentence. Right. So I know men who had a partner call in a domestic circumstance, they get picked back up, they're back in prison with a life sentence.
Right.
And they'll see him when they see him. It take 3 years, if it take 4 years, and they'll call him back in there and let's find out, was this your fault? Was it not? Should you be freed or should you not be freed? What will your parole term be? So for my experience, it's 2018, day after the death of Tupac, the anniversary. I come home, I'm on gang task force monitoring. I got on an ankle monitor. I'm in a transitional house. I go through all these stages, do my first year, get transferred to Nevada. The whole world goes on lockdown.
Right.
So you got COVID happen. I get through that experience, get to 2021, meet Tech 9, start working on, you know, different things, just building a bond, an organic bond that had nothing to do with music. And music kind of came from that. Him and Travis O'Gwen to getting discharged from parole. So in March 1st of 2022, I actually was discharged parole and finished the Asinine tour with that awareness. I think, March 1st, 2022. So I get off. I actually have my son. I find out that I'm having a baby. I got to deal with that, moving from Vegas to Missouri for work, and to make sure I was ready to really invest the time and the energy and trying to pull off what we are evidently successfully pulling off.
You're in the midst of it right now.
Yeah, man. And so I think, boom, I finally come to a place where I can just take a breather. You know, Horace born, and I go from 2023, spend that year getting through A Prayer in Hell and starting the preparation for A Sin in Heaven. So come September, around that time of 23, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm ready, let me do my thing. And I just got cracking. Travis called me in for a meeting in December, like, hey man, it's short notice, but if I need a song by February, completely done. I need it turned in by the end of January and released in February. Can you do it? I'm like, let's go. I have no idea what the song's gonna be, what the single would be. I knew what the album I generally wanted it to be. Wasn't sure. Start just working on it and pouring everything I had into it, organizing it, writing out the titles, obsessing over it, making sure that it flowed the way I wanted it to flow, getting the music done. So yeah, everything that happened in that period of time, all that stuff got poured in there, and my hopes for the future. I feel like with what I did on Elevating and to close with Gladiator, to kind of just wrap up the place I'm in.
Right.
It's like the beginning of an entire new life. And I think many apologies did that on A Prayer in Hell. It indicated, it signaled that I was moving into another chapter, and I feel like I started this album off coming from that place, and I end with another moment that's saying it's time to go somewhere else. Here we go, you know?
Well, speaking of going somewhere else, one of the things that we get with this Sin in Heaven, and I would say some of your other more recent music, especially with Strange, is it's not overt, but from knowing you to the degree that I do already, there's a level of faith that I think is coming more in your music, even if it's not explicit per se.
Yeah.
So, 2 layers of that. How, being incarcerated and being paroled and everything, how did you never lose your faith? And now how has faith shifted for you now that you are having success and you are doing the things that you plan to do?
I think I'm kind of like when Moses came off of Mount Sinai and they said his hair was blue back, he was bronze. He looked like whatever he got exposed to up there, tanned him and blew his hair back. I feel like that's kind of what happened to me through my experience.
Okay.
I tell people I saw a Red Sea part. I went from a 17-year-old child facing the death penalty, having a life sentence, never going home. 3% of people were being released from prison during that run with Pete Wilson's era. 3% of people with indeterminate sentences being released, man. And that's counting men and women. So you had to be the cleanest, boot-licking captain's clerk, warden's clerk. You had to, if you was gonna go home, you know what I mean? And I just feel like there was a sense of hopelessness for myself and the population.
Right.
You're still a slice of pizza. It's your third strike. You got a petty with a prior life. And that's not what they sold the voters on when they passed that. Polyclass got kidnapped. They promised they were going to crack down the Richard Allen Davises, who don't look nothing like the people they went after,
No,
right? Those
at all.
people aren't the ones. So they lie and use the death of Polyclass to get this law passed, and then start using it to smack any and everybody that they could, mostly nonviolent offenders who were really drug addicts, who were stealing your stereo. You call the cops, this is third strike. He's told another stereo
done.
and he punched one person that 10 years ago. I already did time for that, but it's a petty with a prior. Now you got life in prison. So I'm seeing all of these different things in my environment and I'm growing from them. And I went from hopeless to hopeful, to thinking maybe, to believing, to knowing. I became aware of a process. A gradual process of coming into being, and faith is a huge part of that. You got to hit that point between belief. You got that. You get a little bit of hope. You start thinking, and now you're at the. I kind of believe. I believe I got a chance.
Right.
I believe it. You know what I mean? To knowing. When I say 2016, when I went to board and Commissioner Roberts told me, he denied me. But he essentially told me to go stay out of trouble, which I could do in my living room. You could have sent me home, right? But I wasn't. What I know now is I wasn't ready to go home. I believe that. I think I needed to be exposed to that process. I needed to be exposed to having this family from my community come in and express what they expressed to me and sit with that in my spirit. And allow them the time to sit with what they experienced from me in their spirits. It was in many ways, a beautiful experience, you know? It was a forgiving and understanding and compassionate and empathetic experience where all parties had to come from a place of expression and honest expression. And it was awesome. It was really one of the, so I needed that. I needed that to set in. Maybe I go home too soon. And I don't have this information and this awareness, and maybe some of the decisions that I made that got me to this point don't happen. Butterfly effect type shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? You go back in the past and you step on one butterfly and maybe, you know. So I'm comfortable with having had to do that extra 2 years and what I did in that period of time. The interesting part is when you are denied parole, typically, They have a shopping list of things for you to go do. There's a reason. You don't have your GED. I need a little stronger education from you. I'm gonna need you to anger management. Looks like, you know, that argument you got in that you didn't quite get in trouble for. I'm gonna need you to go to anger management. I'm gonna need 6 more months of AA or NA from you. They told me to go stay out of trouble.
Okay.
Right? They didn't give me a single thing to go. Their list for me to do was go stay out of trouble. So I know I'm going home. When I get back, and now I gotta try to make sure every fucking body knows I'm going home. And they just be the cops that sat in that room know. They've been in 1,000 hearings. They're like, oh yeah, man. They were putting me back in the tank smiling. Like,
wow.
damn, man, yeah, man, you won't be here long, Mr. Brown. My lawyer come in there, because I'm still upset a little bit. I wanted to go home. And the lawyer comes in there like, hey, man, I can assure you in all my years of doing this that anytime you've ever heard something like that, this is over. He said you didn't get rejected. He just gave everybody time to come to terms with the fact that you're coming home. He said that's all that is.
Wow.
He can't say that in the record, but that's what he just did. He just told them to prepare yourself for this, because if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's coming home. He's getting out of prison. Everyone in here should prepare themselves for that.
So with that, with the 2400 being the first song on the album,
yeah,
and understanding what you're saying there, I was a little surprised that given what transpires on the album, that it starts with the execution of sorts.
Right.
So why did you set it up like that?
I set it up like that because that's a representation of me getting off of parole in a way. Mm-hmm. I couldn't say a lot of things I wanted to say, both about the criminal justice system. I was still in the clutches of the same entity that had been trying to crush me for 26 years.
Right.
And so now I'm supposed to come tell people that and not expect it to try to crush me again. It's still...
As it had.
Yeah, as it has. And so I was careful about that. So when I have that electricity go off and I say no more Mr. Nice Guy, that's essentially me being free from parole. This their last shot. The state electrocutes me, right? And what is the Death Row Records logo, right?
Right.
So the state of California executes me and I'm sitting in this chair. I get fried, but instead of it frying me, it's like Horace Pinker from Shocker. When they electrocuted him, he became the electricity. It made him stronger.
Right.
Right? So the same way that my execution in that environment and the death of me coming off of parole, it just made me stronger.
Yeah.
It freed me from that body, and I got this power, and that's why you keep hearing the electricity with the gunshots in that song. It's Horace Pinker from the Shocker.
Okay.
So what I did is I mixed Horace Pinker from the Shocker with the Death Row Records logo, with Marty McFly, with the power of the Ghost Rider, with the power of Shocker from Spider-Man. I mixed all of them together to create this character who is speaking on this song. If you're doper than me, if you say so, faithful. We'll fuck around and find out. I'm wearing all black in this bitch. It's hard to describe the way I survived and was able to rise like the past don't exist. I'm Marty McFly, I'm in the DeLorean looking for Doc. Aftermath in this bitch. I was ruthless, facing death row. Then I beat a life sentence, I'm lit like a match in this bitch. Hair on fire, like Pedro Medina. I'm crackling, shocker, I'm back in this bitch. The Ghost Rider meets Herman Schultz. I'm like Horace Pinker right after a hit, right? So I've embodied the character, got shocked and got off of this electric chair and said, I rep the West. I'm that motherfucker. That's what the fuck just happened on the first 8 bars. And that's some of the dopest shit in the history of hip hop.